Her story deals with a subculture of heavy metal music that some feel is sending a dangerous message to your kids.
The forces of evil on the dark side of devil rock.
And I want to talk tonight about the devil and demons and witches and wizards.
And we just mix it up with hardcore and aggression and come out with something we think's an original sound.
Loud, fast, heavy, you know.
Well, what do you got?
What do you got?
You're listening to Riff Worship, the podcast that likes to try to answer the question, what makes a riff? Why do we care about the riffs? Talking about our favorite albums concerning riffs, sometimes with guests. I'm Austin Paulson, one of your hosts. With me, as always, are the great Bald Hope, the great Baldini, Dylan Adams, and my good friend Justin Swindle. Guys, gentlemen, how are you?
Good.
Doing
good,
great.
good.
How are you?
Oh, I'm all right.
Who cares?
Yeah, that's fine. That's acceptable. Enough about me, though. We have a very special guest today. We kind of did an episode on our guests, an album by our guest. This person is so many things: a father, an entrepreneur, a vocalist, a skateboard enthusiast, Transformers lover. We have none other than Sean Ingram of Coalesce here with us today. Sean, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah. Did you, we kind of talked a little bit off air about some of the collectibles in your home here. Did you collect many Transformers as a kid? I feel like I saw you post a few things before on your social media.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just like most 40, 50-year-olds, you know, G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man, all that stuff, you know. But I think that's something, I don't think all people go through this, but I think that I went through kind of a thing that when I had a couple dollars, I like to just go back in time and get the things that I always wish I had. And I think that just kind of turned into an obsession. I do that with records sometimes. I do that with toys, but lately it's mainly just Transformers. And that really started out as a thing to do with my son. I have a 17-year-old son, and he works with a really cool local vintage toy shop called 1313 Mockingbird Lane. And the guy who runs it's a guy, he booked one of our very first Coalesce shows back in the day, and in Sioux Falls. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a small world, and I'm sure everybody kind of has that same story. But yeah, my weakness is Generation 1 Transformers, and I'll do this thing to where I'll just buy a shit ton of them, and then I'll just sell them, and then I'll buy them different ones and sell them. So yeah, that's just one of my vices.
Was there was there one that you like had to have, maybe that you missed out on as a kid that you were like really stoked to get?
Well, my dad was a gun nut, and it was crazy to think that I didn't have Megatron as the Walther, pistol, and so it's incredibly hard to get a hold of. It's considered the Grail by many, and that was I sold my business recently and exited day to day, and that's one of the things that I got. And the other one we chatted with was this crow over my shoulder. I had it imported from like Japan because they still make them without the orange tips. This is really getting nerdy, but like,
love it.
Oh no, this is great.
Yeah, I'm just a big fan of it, so I have it, but sometimes, I don't like to display my stuff, and, I like to just put it in boxes and just own it and pull it out when I want to look at it, and, when people have these really great collections, of whatever it is, pops or whatever, vinyl, and you see it all over the room, and like that just gives me so much anxiety. So like, to me, I like to just like put them away and just pull it out and look at it and just put it back. And so I don't really have a lot of stuff around my house other than this guy, for now, because I don't really know how to store him because he's super fragile.
No, he's beautiful. I like that it's out in all its glory. I feel like kind of the theme of collectibles and collecting. Do you feel like that has been something that maybe has transitioned into what you do as like for work? I mean, some of the research we've done and just kind of looking back at some of your discography with, the packages and the variants, I feel like, that would be, if I was into collecting, toys, maybe that's something that's like, oh, this is how I know, like, maybe a vinyl collector would want to own something as special as this, or like the packages like that.
Yeah, totally. So, so I started my business in like 99, 2000. And you know, the first clients that we had on Merch Table, it was called Blue Collar Distro back then, but the first clients we had was Coalesce and the Get Up Kids. So, you know, at that point, you know, Coalesce was you know, selling records more regularly, you know, and we would always run into things to where like Var from No Idea was like, you know, I've got 500 vinyl with ruined covers. What are we going to do? And I would create covers for him, and I just had this outlet, so I would do that. But the downside of that is that, you know, I had too much freedom. So like, you know, we would just put out really kind of like some really cool stuff, but some really kind of like gnarly stuff. And then it turned into redoing masters and remixes and stuff like that. And so that created a really huge issue for the band, in my opinion, or for me personally. And it's really taken quite a while to untangle. I call it unlucasing, you know, everything we did and get it back to the original, you
Yep.
know, to what it originally came out with. And so, you know, one of the big things that we're dealing with is, you know, like 012, the record that you guys did the podcast on, that came out with the original artwork, you know, with the baby. And then for some reason, the spot gloss was changed from just this tab of the actual songs to something totally different. And then it turned in, you know, and we just kept fucking with it. And so, so what we've been working on the last 2 years with Relapse is to actually be re-releasing all of our albums on vinyl again. They're coming out in the next month or two.
Wow.
And we painstakingly put them back to their original, to the way they were originally. The only one that isn't exactly like it was originally is Give Them Rope, because we didn't have you know, Johnny's passed away, and so we don't have a lot of that stuff, and so we just kind of used some of the pieces we had from No Sleep, you know. But yeah, the vinyl for 012 is going right back to the way it was originally with the original baby art, Dan Hanks art. It has I actually somehow found the original tab, you know, written, and I
Wow.
was able to rescan it and put it back in, you know, and yeah. So, so that was, I would say that was, that's probably one of the problems, you know what I mean, is, you know, I had full control, and, you know, you're just putting things out, and you can get yourself, you know, at the time, you're not thinking about legacy. You're not thinking about how things are going to be perceived down the way, how you want to save things for posterity. So that that is definitely something that we've been correcting, and everybody will see that here in the next couple months.
Is that kind of like why you all announced your reunion show, because of like the reissues of the vinyl? Or
No. So look, man, action, like the thing I've really learned about life is that action begets action, right? Say you're one example is that you have, say you're trying to buy a house, right? That's been on the market for 8 months. And then you start asking about it. All of a sudden, 5 other assholes are bidding on the house, right? So it's like, I learned that from my buddy who's a realtor. And I really kind of what happened is I've been working heavily on a new band for the past several years. And we are getting ready, we're getting ready to release that this year. And so, really, I think what happened is that, you know, that's how the universe worked. And the guys in Coalesce, we get together every year at Christmas. Like every year we get together and have dinner. If you look at well, I guess Nate scrubbed it already, but like if you know, in the past, we're just like, hey, we got dinner, whatever, right? And it's just kind of like a you know, here we are again, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so, and every year we never talk about playing or doing shows or doing anything. And then we had no interest in doing it, you know, and we never broke up. We just stopped playing, you know. And so and so just this year, Nate's like, hey, do you want to play some shows? And Jess was just like, yeah. So I think that that my theory of how the universe works is that, it's like, people see, people in the band see Nate having fun writing stuff with Casket. They see me, having fun in Norway recording, and then they're like, hey, I want to have fun again. And it just all kind of happens. So we don't plan anything. Coalesce does not plan anything. It just happens, and we joke that we're kind of like cicadas, right? He's like, we disappear for 15 years, we kind of pop up, and so like and so that's just kind of how we work.
Well, one of the dates you have scheduled, at least right now, is the Furnace Fest appearance. It seems like there's going to be kind of quite a few bands that kind of are, at least, I don't know if they're like coming back or maybe they're doing some kind of special set. I mean, you were playing with like Poison the Well, Under Oath, Stretch Armstrong, Shia Elude. And it's also maybe like kind of a last, I don't want to say this is going to be the last one necessarily, but maybe it will look differently perhaps in the future. Are there anything that you're looking forward to playing in Furnace Fest? I mean, you guys are kind of this well-known, you're very mobile and very energetic. Have you been kind of practicing and trying to get into the feel of it? Is it like maybe like riding a bike? Like what's kind of your mindset going into this first performance?
So really, I mean, Furnace Fest has been, I don't know shit about Furnace Fest.
Mhm.
I don't follow it. I don't know anything about it. So I just know that every year they had asked us to play, and Nate just every year is just like, hey, Furnace Fest wants us to do this thing, and just, it didn't sound fun. We don't like big stages. Like, we hate big stages. Like,
Yeah.
we're not a big stage band. So like that is not the type of thing that we look forward to. But it just sounds fun this year. So, so we're just gonna give it a shot. As far as like getting ready for it, we have been so we have a new drummer. We have Jeff from Small Brown Bike. He's been, somebody that Nate's worked with a lot, and has always wanted to work with. And Jess is, Coalesce with Small Brown Bike, we did a lot of stuff together. So we're kind of, friends, right? So anyways, he's in Brooklyn, Jess is in St. Louis, Nate's in Kansas City, and I'm in Lawrence. So me and Nate are close. What happens is Jess drives in, and then Jeff flies in. And so Jeff is in the process of moving to Kansas City. And so we just, with the new technology, it's so easy. We just put it we just have a Coalesce calendar, and we just block out weekends. And then we're rehearsing down in Waldo, part of town. And so, yeah, we've put a lot of time into it. There's a lot of, it's been, the last show we played was with Converge, I think 2010. So it's been a minute. And so, a lot of it's muscle memory. For me, luckily, I've been getting my vocals back in shape for the past several years. So I'm at the top of my game currently. So it was really easy for me to just kind of pop over. So, yeah, it's just like any band getting ready for something. We're taking it seriously. I think the difference between back in the day and now is that we really want, like in the past, it was really an event, and it was an experience, and then we just left it all on the mat, right?
Yeah.
We just beat ourselves up, and to us it was just like a kind of like an emotional release. But like, I think now we really, really appreciate it when we see our contemporaries sound as good live as they sound on the record. And so we've never really done that. We've always rehearsed, we've been tight, we've been loose, we've been all these things. But like, I think that going into this, like moving forward, like that's really important for us. Like things like getting in-ears, to protect our hearing and knowing what the heck's going on. I've fought monitors my entire goddamn life. I fought sound guys my whole life. I swear I'm deaf. My bandmates would tell you I'm deaf, but I get my hearing checked every year, and they tell me I'm fine. So like we're really kind of like correcting a lot of that stuff, and that's just new for us, because like Coalesce was always a punk band. You know,
Right.
we've never owned a real guitar. We've only owned Squires that we rebuilt. We've only owned things off, you know, from thrift stores, you know, that type of stuff, you know. So we're just, you know, kind of just, you know, just putting a little more into our, you know, into our equipment and into, you know, into our approach.
I don't know if you guys think much in terms of like anniversaries or if that matters to you. I mean, just kind of briefly noting on, you know, 0 and 2 and even Ox kind of celebrating some kind of milestones, you know, especially with 0 and 2, you know, from what I understand, you guys really haven't played a lot of those songs live or really, you know, obviously you guys kind of disbanded. Maybe they weren't, maybe the energy that you felt maybe when they were being written or recorded wasn't there when you kind of came back to them. Can fans expect any of those songs to be performed live for this upcoming performance?
Yeah, totally. So I'll back up one thing. We hate nostalgia. We don't like it. So you know, when Ox came out, they wanted us to be there was some 90s fest, and we were like, we wouldn't play it, you know, and some of our friends that were playing it that took offense to it, but we're just like, we're not a 90s band. We just put out Ox. We think it's the, you know, every band thinks their latest record's the best, right? But we truly believe that our Ox was the best thing we ever did. And so we like, there's always a fucking anniversary for something we've done. Swear to God, I get a text like, oh, it's too much because we did so much and it's been so long. It's like, I can't think of a single anniversary we care about. Like there just really isn't. So I think that the only time we would care about that is if you know, if we were lucky enough to do a Roadburn set and they were like, we would love it if you did this record from beginning to end. But internally, like, no one cares. So, and how we choose the songs is really just based off of like what's fun to us, like what's fun to play. So there's a lot of songs that you know, sonically are great on a record and they were fun to write, but they're not fun to play, you know what I mean? And so we normally skip over those. So but yeah, we have we have like 4 or 5 songs from 0 and 2 and I think a couple that we don't normally do that, you know, we're pulling out for the set for sure.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Like it seems like that mindset has been carried, you know, from the beginning, you know, at least as long as it serves the set and it serves the performance, then great.
Yeah, I mean, and we don't even look at it like that. We never look at our performances like, hey, what would be a good set? Other than the fact that we have to at least play "You Can't Kill Us All" because it's the one everyone wants to murder each other to, right? So, but like, you know, and some tours, you know, we didn't play that deliberately, and people were pissed, and we're just, you know, we're like, I don't know. Look, I think when you're in a band and you feel hamstrung by like what people, you know, like Dance Monkey Dance, that's kind of one of those things. So, but you know, I took my son and we saw Failure, and they kept playing the intro to like Saturday Night Savior or something like that, one of their big hits, and they wouldn't play it. And I left pissed too. So like you know, so I get it, you know, and so we don't have a bunch of huge hits like that, obviously, but like we have one that people want to, you know, fight to. But like I in general, it has to be fun, you know. It's like there's always someone ready to tell us why something, you know, why we're not this band or why this band's better or whatever. And so if it's not fun for us, then it's like it's just not even worth doing, especially a band we started 30 years ago, you know what I mean, that we're still doing as we're approaching 50, you know, which is kind of insane to think, you know what I mean? It's like my dad wasn't doing shit at 50 that he was doing at 20, you know what I mean? It's like so it's kind of weird to think that bands get to do that, you know, and I think Converge and Neurosis were the ones that broke that mold, you know what I mean? It's like, fuck, we can still do this. That's awesome. You know, it's like, think Jake, think, you know, Steve, thanks Kurt, you know what I mean? It's really cool. You know, there doesn't appear to really truly be any major time limit on it or expiration date on it, unless, you know, I'm out there in fucking stroller, you know, or a wheelchair or something like that, and I can't move, you know. But like in general, it's like, it's just kind of crazy to think that hardcore punk could still be performed 30 years later by the same band that started the kids,
Yeah, especially if y'all are taking care of yourself. If you're wearing in-ear and having a monitor and not blowing out your hearing, do it forever,
Yeah, well, we'll see.
It's, you brought up a really good point with, the whole concept of dance monkey dance, right? As, musicians, you want to go out there and you want to do what you want to do. And a lot of larger acts will kind of get wrangled into, okay, we've got a new record out or we have new material that's out. We have to play X amount from our back catalog because that's what everybody wants to hear. And you've brought it up in other interviews you've done, other podcasts you've done where you're a fan of like Tool, for instance. And some of the feedback I've seen from their more recent tour that they've done is that a lot of people have left upset because, they didn't play 46 and 2. They didn't play Schism, whatever it may be. But it's deliberately like, we're going to play whatever we want. We enjoy this. It's a show. You guys are coming to enjoy it. We're going to play whatever we want. If we want to play, a deep cut off of Lateralis, or we want to play a deep cut off the new record, whichever, we're going to do it. And if you happen to enjoy it, you're just part of it.
I think that's how you can tell which bands don't give a fuck about money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the small band doesn't give a fuck about money, and Tool clearly doesn't give a fuck about money because they're, there's so much money going around, right? So those dudes are in the golden hour. They're doing whatever they want, and it's great. And I've been seeing Tool since Anima. Anima was the first one that I ever went and saw, and me and Jess actually went together to see that, and I had no idea what to expect. They played the Outhouse, which is a small punk club out here in Lawrence, Kansas, and I was aware of them because at the ramp, people brought that original Tool demo with the penis tool on the cover, and so I was aware of them and stuff. But it wasn't until I saw Anima that I was just like, holy fucking shit! I mean, that was the record that like. I didn't know that you could do that. Like to me, that's, and it still is, and it wasn't until the next record that did that to me that just like kind of like rewired my brain was D. Louston, from Mars Volta.
Yeah.
Mars Volta. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And I was just like, this is like, it's every time you listen to it, it's just as exciting. And it's just as exciting today as it was the first time I listened to it. And and that's the type of thing that I think of when when people we're having some beers or whatever, and people are like, if you could go back and what would you do different? It's like, I just want to hear Anima again for the first time. it was almost like a spiritual experience, like on a very deep level, and there's great bands that come and go, but like everybody just has that one that just really kind of rewires them, and that was mine for sure.
Well, when I asked you, I kind of proposed this question to you, like maybe when we started talking about potentially doing this interview, about riffs that kind of stand out, and I like that you mentioned that too, where I would love to go back and hear that album for the first time. I feel like I'm always trying to chase like that first time I heard a particular riff. What is it about riffs from Tool, or you mentioned Elder before? What is it about their approach to a riff that kind of catches your ear or stands out to you?
So I'm really not a guitar guy. Like I'm a bass guy. So like to me, it's like that's what did it for me. You know what I mean? Like Tool is very bass and drum heavy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and there's no better riffs in the world than on early Fugazi stuff, and so for me, it's like that's what I care about. It wasn't until later, like Elder to me is like a guitar band, and so and their guitar riffs are just, I mean, dude, they're endless. It's endless creativity. It's like it just never ends with them. So and they're great, but like for me, it was always the bass.
So like kind of the first type of music you ever got into was punk through your skateboarding friends. And then obviously you joined Coalesce and you love Tool. And I read somewhere in an interview that like after Coalesce ended, you started like listening to jazz. and you didn't even realize you would like jazz music. Like, what do you think draws you to such like difficult music to get into? Because none of it's like 4/4 pop music. It's all like kind of out there and hard to love.
So, well, it's pronounced coalesce with
Sorry.
there's not a hard K on it on our name. It's okay. Everyone calls us Coalesce. We have been joking around with the idea of actually making shirts. We just misspell put a K on the end. Yeah. So if you're asking about me, what's drawn me to that personally, that is because I was like, remove the punk part of that question. Like, it was because punk is 4/4, right? So like,
Yeah.
for the part, Jess is a classically trained guitarist, and he just thinks different. If you ever met Jess, he's just an enigma. He's a really unique human being, and so he doesn't think in 4/4, and he just doesn't write in 4/4. You know what I mean? That's not to say that Jess and Nate and everybody gets together and say, hey, this 4/4 part, it has to not be 4/4, because because not, it's not that. It's just who he is, right? And so and that's why it was always, even in the very first songs, it just came out that way. I was very young when I joined this band, and I didn't really listen to a ton of music like most kids maybe would have, right? I mean, I was a skater. I knew these bands, they inspired me, but I didn't own any records. I owned skate VHSs, right? And that's my music. So like, the way that I learned music was through the lens of Jess. 5/4 feels comfortable to me. That's my type of signature. I love that fucking groove. It feels like a 4/4, and then it hits at the end, right? And I just love the way it feels. And so I just learned how to write from them. I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Like, like, help me fight for this, because like, the vocals for Coalesce are very they're very I call it syllabic, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, getting in. And so they would help me figure out how to write that. And then in the early days, and then I was able to like figure it out. So that's how my brain is wired. And it's directly through the lens of Jess, because I didn't know shit about any of that stuff. And so there was one part when we were recording Aux, I could not get this time signature. I just kept fucking up this part so bad. And they finally were like, Sean, this is 4/4. You're trying to put a 5/4 to 4/4. Like, just fucking chill out. And I was like, oh. And so the 4/4 on the part felt awkward. And I can't remember which song or what it was, but like, it's just because I was wired, through the lens of Coalesce, coming up, because I was so young. That's how I was built, and that's my understanding of it. And then discovering jazz, it's just interesting, right? It's just, it's like, to me, I mean, look, there's nothing better than a great fucking pop song, but when you hear these remixes and they're putting a pop song on top of this song, on this song, and this song, like, to me, when I first understood what was happening and how they all sync up, I was just like, oh my God, that's like not as cool as this other stuff. So and that's really just comes from how I learned music, through jazz.
I like that you mentioned skateboarding, because when I kind of take a look at your journey and some of the research that we've done in preparing for this interview, I feel like it all kind of starts with skateboarding. Like, whether your business ventures or just music in general, it all starts with just getting on a skateboard. Do you remember how you kind of found skateboarding? Was there a particular person that kind of like gave you a board and like, hey, let's just go out one day? Like, how did that begin?
Yeah, and I say that in every interview. And I did a thing for I did a speaking engagement for kids at a college 2 days ago, and I started with that. I was like, look, everything starts at skateboarding with me. Everything does. So and it's a very true statement. And yeah, so skateboarding was I don't know exactly how it happened, but my buddy Dan Askew from Second Nature Records, a childhood friend, we've been going to school together since like first or second grade. We just kind of discovered together. I don't know if it's like his grandma took us to UNLU and I saw the graphics for the first time, or I saw, the tricks weren't as incredible as they are today, right? So, but it's just something about it, and then we got the skate videos, and it was when we had the skate videos, it was over. I was in love. It's like, I'm a fucking skater, dude, and that was seventh grade, or probably earlier. I take that back. It was seventh grade is when I finally was just like a skater, and I've just been wearing jeans and flannels since then. But
Yeah, that's how I
but
feel.
yeah, my son, always tells me, my style's old, this and that. I was like, it'll come back around, dude. It's come back around twice. It'll be back again. Yeah, I mean, that's just where it was, and me and Dan, that's when we started building ramps, and then and then people from the city started showing up, just strangers, that were
Yeah.
skaters. And back then, it's, if you were a skater, you weren't a stranger, you're best friends, and that's just, everything came from that. And then the music just naturally, then we started getting older and started meeting people who like weren't skaters, but were, like guitar and bass was their skateboarding. And then we're like, they're like, we need a vocalist, you know what I mean? And that's how I got in my first band, and so like it just all happened from there. And so and I would, 40 years later, it still goes back to skateboarding, and and skateboarding is so weird because it's like you have a very punk segment, you have a very unpunk segment, you have a segment with money, much just like music, right? You know what I mean? And so it's very, the parallels are very similar, and so you can be a skateboarder today and like have nothing in common with with an Olympic athlete,
Yeah.
but you're a skateboarder, and so it's kind of interesting how it's changed, because back then it was just street and vert,
Yeah.
now there's all of this other stuff with it. It's very confusing.
I really connected with hearing about you building your first like mini ramp for the first time. Anybody who had like, if there was somebody in the neighborhood who had the ramp, you were probably over at their house just terrorizing their family, or like the amount of times where kids came over and left like, pop cans or something like that in the lawn. My mom scolded me. Was it hard? Like I'm always curious, like how did you, like how old were you when you built that? Like was there a guide? Like you just figured out like what was going on?
Yeah, so we were probably 15, 16. And and back then when you were a skater, you had friends that were 23, and that wasn't weird at all. It was totally fucking normal, and so it wasn't creepy or anything. And so I mean, we just found friends who had pickup trucks, and we fucking robbed construction sites.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my mom gave us like $100, you know what I mean? And she thinks we built that fucking ramp for $100. Either she's dumb or she was super cool and not asking any questions, because we made a 6-foot ramp, and it was like 20 something plus feet wide, and it was awesome, and the entirety of Kansas City was in my backyard. And we learned of Fugazi there. I remember specifically the first time I ever heard Fugazi. They're like, "This is the new Minor Threat band," and I heard those bass lines. I was like, "What the fuck?" And then that's the first time I ever heard Tool, but I really wasn't into it. And then that turned into our friends who were older taking us to the Outhouse, and it's a BYOB titty club now, but it used to be a punk club, and it's a little tiny box in the middle of a cornfield. There's a documentary on it on YouTube right now, and we saw the most amazing shows there. From anything from Worlds Collide and Quicksand before Slip came out. Like,
Damn.
one of my favorite shows I ever saw was Helmet with Quicksand opening up. And then, I saw Green Day there on the Kerplunk tour to like 200 people. Seen Biohazard a million times. Nirvana even played there. During the Bleach tour or shortly before. Yeah. So like that's turned into that. You know what I mean? And then that's really like in the 16, like when I was in anywhere between 16 and 17. That's really like where music and skateboarding, it was more than like, it was like the commitment to music was at the same level of the commitment to skateboarding. You know what I mean? It's like you were skating and then you were going to a show, you know what I mean? And that was your day, and we just, God, we had so much free time,
Yeah.
Just we spent it all there,
Yeah. One thing that kind of comes to mind, I have a very like limited relationship with skateboarding, but one thing that I kind of remember from growing up with, and I don't know if this is, maybe you could touch on this with maybe the certain trends and like the declines and upward, kind of trajectory of the sport. But, I feel like maybe when I was getting into it with maybe some of the professionals that were in, and that were popular at the time, I feel like fashion was very heavy. Like you had to have like a certain type of shoe or like, there was a certain kind of board or hat or style or whatever. Was that like very prevalent when you were getting into skateboard? Like, was there like a signature kind of outside of the skateboard thing? Like, was it that kind of focused in that? Like, I don't know.
Well, yes and no. So like, I would say that the punk side of it, we were all about skull skates, function before fashion. That was our motto. And that motto was, back then was a reaction to the kind of stuff that you would see like with certain skaters, that like Gator with the coiffed hair, or Christian Hosoi with the hot pink spandex and the wig and all this stuff, you know what I mean? Whereas like we were part of that kind of world. Even those dudes were fucking hardcore as shit. I mean, one's a fucking murderer and the other one's like a convicted drug felon, but like, but like as far as like the people that we were like trying to emulate were like Todd Swank, and or at least for my part, and our favorite skaters were like Ray Barbie, like it came later with this incredible style, but it was all about style on the skateboard, right? And so I would say that we would call those people you're talking about posers, dude, and poser is still something that I'll fucking fight like that you're taking a beating. Even now, right? It's like, to me, that
don't call Sean a poser.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like
that's
anyone from, I would say, from my classes, that's what it was, because it was about, skateboarding was about being authentic. Punk rock is about being authentic. Everything we're doing is about being authentic. It's not about the money. It's about being creative and expressing yourself in an authentic way. And I think that's why everybody fucking hated Christian bands, because they sounded like something that was authentic, but you could totally fucking tell it wasn't, And so, and I think you still kind of see that today. You know what I mean? I don't think people use the word poser as much, but you people know, you know what I mean, when you see something, or they call it mid now or whatever, right? So, but yeah, so I would say that I mean, dude, I didn't have all the skate clothes growing up, so I had Rude Dog sportswear. That was what Walmart sold.
Yeah.
And people would goof on me, you know what I mean, for that, but it was lovingly. But if somebody rolled in with like $300 worth of Life's the Beach and all this ridiculous shit, I mean that type of person like probably would mesh with the type with the crew that like we rolled with and stuff. And so that's probably what you're referencing.
I love obviously like skate videos are very important. I think maybe some of the videos I remember, like obviously maybe the big one when I was in high school was like Fully Flared, and we all like gathered around the TV and watched and were blown away. Were there videos that kind of stand out to you, maybe, you know, skater, like their parts in particular videos. You kind of mentioned as well, maybe you heard certain music through those certain parts, like any particular skater stand out to you or video?
Well, the video that that is in my DNA is Streets on Fire. That's where I discovered Dinosaur Jr.'s Bug album. Like that entire album is a skate part. Like every single song is a skate part in a video, and you listen to it. And so in Salva's part when Descendants came out, it's like Descendants. It's like so fucking tight, dude. And so it just got, it's like that. I think that was the first time that I learned how a song can like how important it is. It goes with that, and later on some of the newer videos, rap goes really well with skateboarding too. It's very fluid, it has a beat and stuff like that, even though rap's not like my first thing I reach for, but I definitely recognize how it goes and how it's evolved and stuff. But but I've also seen some really terrible parts where it's like, dude, why is Jimi Hendrix on this part? Like it makes no sense, it doesn't work. But yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a debate like in the pro world or the skate world, it's where I think that the people who put those videos out have to, recoup what their investment is. And they have very creative directors that put it together. But I think that if you ask any skater, they're going to say, just let me pick my own song, it's like, and that's very important for them. So I think some videos do that. And that's probably what those really jarring videos are, is like, that dude fucking loved that song. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's all good. But like, I would say the first skate video that my jaw dropped was probably, I can't remember which came first. It's Hocus Pocus or Shackle Me Not, but I was at Eat Concrete Skateboard Park. That's the H Street Skateboards video. And that's when modern skateboarding started. That was Danny Way, Matt Hensley. That was when, and I remember specifically there was a part where they're in a parking garage and there's some kind of car, like a Cadillac or something. And the skater jumps up like ollies and grinds the car, and the entire place came fucking unglued. And they're playing it in the bottom, in the flat bottom of the vert ramp, and we're watching it, and all those kids were just, and it's one of those things to where it's like we all watched that video, and then as soon as the lights came back on, every fucking kid was trying those.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? It was so inspirational, and that was the internet back then, right? You know what I mean? It's like, kids in Omaha, and look, this is the park that Steve Barra came from. You know what I mean? It's like I learned frontside airs with Steve Barra. You know what I mean? He's a huge dude, and he came from there. And but even then, that type of, I mean, what skateboarding was happening in West Coast was not getting to the Midwest, and that H Street video absolutely like just destroyed everybody, and we actually, one of the locals there was Todd Beckley. He's changed his name since, but he's the singer of The Faint. He's one of the most technically proficient skaters you've ever seen in your life. He's so amazing. And when I found out he was in The Faint, I was like, this is Todd Beckley? Like, this is amazing. Like, he's amazing at skateboarding and he's amazing at music, And but yeah, Omaha was a hot spot, and that's 4 hours north of us, and yeah, but that was the video.
Talking about like maybe a version of the internet with all the tapes, I think like maybe even for some of us, we heard like, Human Remains and like a fucking skateboarding video for the first time. Is that how you got familiar with Earth Crisis? Is like through videotapes or just skating videos, or how did that come about?
So Earth Crisis is what happened was I was in a band with a guy named Justin Wright out of Lee's Summit. It's a suburb out here, and he was like a tape trader, and I didn't know what that was. And this dude was like, he just had everything. I mean, it was incredible. His room was just galore, like so much stuff. And he played that, and we heard the I was late to Earth Crisis because he had already gone out to that Middlesex Fest, I guess is what it was. That was where Earth Crisis really like blew up. It's like this famous video. I mean, it just looks like mayhem on stage. And dude, the energy just fucking blew me away, you know. And I was just like, holy shit, this is amazing. And I got the Conviction Records 7-inch, and I was just in love. And yeah, and that was right around the time that as I was getting older from skateboarding, I was getting in trouble with drinking and drugs and stuff like that. And and I recognized that I wanted, I had to knock it off, and to me, I got really into straight edge around that time and straight edge bands because we would skate with BMXers too, right? And so Woody and Rick Thorne, and then at a very, very lesser extent, Dennis McCoy. It was not unusual for us to all be at a Home Depot parking lot curb till 2 a.m, just grinding and just fucking off, right? So yeah, totally. And so so those dudes were always straight edge, and we got all of our straight edge records from Dennis McCoy. Him and Rick would actually go to New York because they were pro BMX riders, right? And they would go to CBGBs for these matinee shows. They were at all of them. And so they bought all the 7-inches. So we're buying like Judge, like first press Judge on Blue and all this stuff. And he's like $1, and
damn.
we were like, holy shit, dude. We had the most intense collection for a good decade, straight from the dude who was there. It was nuts, and so that kind of started me on my journey to getting into straight edge. And and Syracuse had an incredible fucking scene going on at the Lost Horizon, and they had all these crazy bands. And you're 17, I just graduated high school, and then was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna move out there. You know what I mean? I fucking wrote a letter to the zine. Is there any, I can't even remember the zine's name, but somebody who lived out there, and they're like, yeah, we're looking for a roommate, blah blah blah. You should come out. And that scene was like really just like a hodgepodge. People just kind of came in. You know what I mean? It's just like, and even after I was there, other people would kind of come in to the scene, make new bands, and stay and go and stuff. And so that's where I got really, really, really heavy into the straight edge thing, and I always described my youth as a pendulum. It's like it never was like this. It went this way, and it went that way, and it went this way, and it went this way. It wasn't until I was like 30 that it kind of chilled out, right? So, and maybe that's the same for other people. So I got really, really into it. I was really lucky enough to be a fucking Earth Crisis groupie. Like they were on East Coast tour, and that's how I met the guys in Snapcase and stuff. They did all these shows up and down the coast after they signed with Victory, before Firestorm came out. And and Ben Reed, or I don't even remember if his last name's Reed, but I think it's Ben Reed. He was the original guitarist from Earth Crisis. He lived in the same house with me, and we totally hit it off. I love that guy so much. And so we just followed down, and we just saw all these fucking amazing shows, and we would just mosh hard and fucking debate everybody about abortion and fucking vivisection endlessly. You know what I mean? It's like, that was the 90s in a nutshell.
That's fine. I've only heard of that like one other time of like, it's like Jonathan Richman of like the Modern Lovers was like, he loved the Velvet Underground so much that he was like, I'm just going to move to New York City. And he ended up living with their manager and was just like, I got to be around it.
Sometimes that's what you got to fucking do. So it was a real good learning experience, and I know, and the podcast that you guys had mentioned that, about that experience and stuff. And, it's interesting. I would say legacy is a very interesting thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's like something that is so little in the moment can sometimes be really fucking big in its legacy, and vice versa. And so listening to some of the things that like how you guys as you researched it, and it's no fault to your own because that's all that's out there, right? And then it was just so interesting to hear you guys kind of put together the story based off of those little tidbits, but
Yeah,
not
yeah.
knowing you were there.
Right.
I had no idea who that person you were talking about was. You know what I mean?
I don't
And
even.
my wife listened to it too, and she's like, "Oh, who are they talking about?" I was like, "Oh, they're talking about me." And she's like, "Oh, what?" I
Yeah.
was like, I go, no. I said, this is what's interesting about Legacy because back in the day, we didn't worry about that. You
Yeah.
just came in, you fucked shit up, and you left, and you
Right.
never thought twice about it.
Yeah.
And and our contemporaries have done a really great job of, I don't want to say curating it, but like definitely, having a place, doing interviews and all of that stuff. I could like Jake from Converge is amazing at it. I think the guys in Botch have done an amazing job with what they've done, especially with them not being a band for so long. Dead Guy came back. They're like, "This is a documentary." Everybody, now moving forward, this year moving forward, that's what people will go back to. So like, with Coalesce, it's always been kind of an enigma, right? Because like we just fucked off and nobody cared, and so like it's just so interesting. So with the straight edge thing, definitely something that people don't remember is that there were such things as straight edge crews and they were fucking dangerous and people got fucking killed. You know what I mean? And so, on our first tour in '95, for me, this is what started all the problems with me and straight edge was that song Harvest and Maturity, right? I'm just a fucking angsty young kid who's trying to wrestle with this concept that I just told you guys about, this pendulum. I'm going both ways. I'm trying to figure out, I talked about it other times. It's like there's a song called My Love for Extremes. There's it's like there's all that's really kind of like my personality and struggling with that as a young man or old teenager really. And so we went to in our first tour in '95, we went to Salt Lake City, and we never seen satanic goat tattoos on necks, and I mean it was fucking scary to us. We're like, holy shit, what is this? It's this whole new world, right?
In Salt Lake City? Damn.
Salt Lake City in the '90s was a hotbed. I don't know if it had to do with the conservative Mormon nature, but they fucking love straight edge, dude, and it was fucking serious as a heart attack. And so that's just kind of, and I'm an asshole too. So like when someone pushes against me, I fucking love to stir the pot, especially back then, not so much now. And so, so look, I didn't do myself or my band any favors, at all, but like, but it was real. And, in every interview I did, I had a beef with the guys from some West Coast band for years, that Alternative Press used to, constantly perpetuate. That I finally had to email him, and I was just like, dude, I don't even fucking remember this beef. It's like, I'd like to go to California and not get killed. So like, can we squash this? What, like, I don't even know. But that part is like really interesting about straight edge because like right now, I feel like maybe it's just different. It was just scarier back then.
For sure.
I mean? Like it was fucking serious. And I see on different Reddit forums, and I don't know if people are joking or what, but they're like, "Oh, I'm straight edge this week," and then I go drinking out. Or I'm straight edge today because I like, But there was for a long time there was a website called How's Your Edge. They would track how people if people are still straight edge. And,
wow.
And so for me, the whole idea of straight edge comes down to, it's a very short period of my life, 2 years, right? Maybe a year, you know what I mean? As I'm grappling with sobriety, family alcoholism, not wanting to be like my dad, et cetera, et cetera. And it just comes down to like it's not fair to hold a 18-year-old accountable for that kind of shit so publicly so far into the future. If I held my kids accountable for some of the shit that they told me when they were 16, you know what I mean? It would be completely unfair, right? You guys ever hung out with a 16-year-old? You ever heard the crazy shit they fucking say?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how can you like, how can you possibly take that seriously, that I've made this commitment to this lifestyle at 16
Yeah.
and I'm going to be that way at 50? Like, I'm not, my brain is not going to ever evolve or change or grow up. And so that part of straight edge has always bothered me. So, and even to the point where my teenage son, it's like he started getting really heavy into straight edge. And I was like, oh, it's like, what's worse? Is he straight edge and he's an asshole, or he's not straight edge and then I have to deal with drinking and all this stuff that I know that has an issue with our family going back to my dad and his grandfather and so on and so forth. So it would be so much cooler if it was chill, like my buddy Dan Askew is. He's been straight edge his whole life. And he's just super chill. You know what I mean? It's like someone's gonna have a drink or what. You know what I mean? It's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? So but I don't look at it like, it doesn't bother me anymore. But I would say that the songs that you guys, I think, were kind of like connecting the dots to, it wasn't related to going to Syracuse. It was actually like our lives being threatened. There was one tour I had to take a couple $1 million out on my life. Promoters were calling us and saying, hey, this crew and this crew came in and threatened to kill me if you show up. They said Sean Ingram's dead if he shows up in this thing. And we're like, we don't fucking know. I mean, we saw that Rolanda episode and they're all on stage and and then someone got killed with a broadsword in Salt Lake City and all this. It was like scary, and like we just really didn't want to be a part of it. So so part of that is me wanting to distance ourselves from that. And then but again, legacy's weird, right? You know what I mean? It's like there's so much nuance and so much context that's lost because we just disappeared, and there's, you know what I mean? It's like a little trail, a little Easter egg trail, but like it's missing huge chunks, and I think that was the most interesting thing about listening to your podcast. Was I was just like, oh, who's this guy, and yeah, it's so interesting. But as I thought about it, I was just like, oh, this is why we're so old now. Like there's huge swaths of time, and the scene has, even though the scene really hasn't changed, the scene has changed, in a lot of ways, and yeah, super, super interesting.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here to clear some of that up for sure.
well, like, let me be clear. I'm definitely not coming up to clear anything up. What is, but like, but I definitely wanted to bring that up because I thought that was one of the most interesting things that I, because that I learned through that, and you couldn't teach me anything in my 20s, dude, but I love learning shit, and I will say that the hardest thing for me to learn at all from my 30s on is perspective and about myself and why I even do things, you know what I mean? So like that was like a really cool moment to just really ponder, but and it was really kind of, timing was crazy too, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was Coalesce wasn't back together or playing anything at that time. It just happened. And I was like, oh shit. Actually, I think when I messaged you is when we said, hey, let's fucking do it. I was like, oh, cool. I'll do your the podcast, and
that's wild.
Actually have something to talk about.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate it. I guess, I mean, with that said, like, obviously you come back home, you kind of maybe get with the guys pretty quick. There's a name change. You guys have a few releases under your belt. At what point do you get into touch with Relapse? How does that relationship form?
Yeah. So some that people don't remember a lot is that we were one of the first hardcore bands to be on a metal label, period. We had records on Earache. And that was a pretty interesting thing because Jess definitely, he willed that into existence. He loved Earache Records. We were so heartbroken when we didn't get the spiky logo on our 7-inch. We got the ice cream logo. And we back then Earache was the fucking coolest label in the world. And so we became friends with Mitch out over there, and then that's how we got the Napalm Death split, because Napalm Death heard the 7-inch, was like, fuck, this is awesome, we want to do something. We had no fucking clue how important that split was going to be to us. It's insane to think that we were even offered that opportunity. Is so cool of them to do that. And so that kind of set the course for us, that we don't really have any labels, or not record label, but label to like what we're in. I think people have largely settled on what metalcore for what we are, or noisecore or something like that. But like during our time, people were constantly trying to fucking come up with names. Carl from was it Ferret Records? He was always like Holy Terror Core, or he was always throwing out new names to see what would stick, you know. And I would say that we just loved to do shit that was kind of like not expected. We loved doing splits with emo bands. Fucking love that, because people are like, why does this exist? It's like, because it does, you know, because it's cool, because no one's done this. And so we you know, we were on Johnny Dudek's label, and then we did stuff with our buddy Dan Askew. But we really wanted to be on Relapse, because we felt like they could do a good job for the band, you know, because we wanted to tour at the time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, in hindsight, that all fucking exploded with the van, but like that, like, Relapse was very, like, that was seen as a label. Like, first off, it was very it was an accomplishment to be on Relapse, for sure. Still is, in my opinion. And also, you know, they just had the coolest, I mean, fucking Neurosis, dude, get the fuck out of here, dude. You're Silver and Blood, dude. Like, that's all that matters, you know. It's like, to be associated with them like that, you know, in any way, was amazing. And so we had a friend from, I think it was from Earache Records, Gordon Conrad. He does Season of Mist now.
Yeah. Okay.
So Gordon Conrad was kind of like the guy. Like, if he liked any band, you know, that band would always be like, Gordon's talking to us, we're getting a record deal. Like, he was kind of like the guy. And so I believe we met him through Earache Records, and then we just always stayed in contact with him. And then he had Matt Jacobson take a look at us, and then they offered us the deal. But we actually look, this is fucking nuts. We looked at Victory Records. You fucking believe that? We actually had a conversation, or I had a conversation with Brandon Ebel for Tooth and Nail Direct, not the Solid State, but Tooth and Nail Direct. And he definitely wanted he wanted to put the kibosh on some lyrics or lyrical content, and like, fuck that, dude. And so but we ultimately settled, you know, that we wanted to work with Relapse, and we pursued Relapse. And so and we still work with them. They actually, you know, this is something that I don't think I mentioned, but like, Relapse in those releases license functioning on the Patience as well. So nice. That's actually coming out on Relapse. Second Nature is largely, you know, just you know, on hiatus, and he's not really doing stuff. And so so they licensed everything, and then we're gonna have at Furnace Fest, we're gonna have you know, something that we're not allowed to announce yet. Nothing super huge, like a totally new record, but we'll have something that they're putting together. And yeah, I mean, they've just been really great to work with.
You know, being excited to work with a label like Relapse that has such a lineage of, you know, multiple bands. I mean, you mentioned, you know, Neurosis through Silver and Blood being such a huge record for that label. And, you know, 20, almost 30 years on, that label is still held in such high regard, and they're still putting out stellar releases from not just one subgenre of acts, but multiple acts. I mean, you've got like electronic-esque bands like Zombie, and then you've got like, you know, Exhumed and all of those bands, like death metal bands, grind bands, you name it. And then being excited to be on a label that essentially has no bones about it about, hey, we'll put this out. Yeah, you've got a grind project that's 10 minutes long with 132 songs. Like, yeah, we'll put it out. And generally, Relapse always has a quality about the releases they put out. There's, if you flip it over and you look at the label on the back of it, a CD, bit of record, whatever it is, and you see that Relapse tag on there, you know you're going to get something of good quality in your hands and care.
So, I have a new project that I've been working on, and it's going to be coming out on Relapse too.
Oh, sick.
Cool.
And Rennie, who's running the label with Drew over there, he said something that I haven't heard anybody say in a long time, but he said, look, it's quality over quantity. And he goes, that applies to your shows, that applies to your releases, that applies to your merch, all this shit. Like, let's just make rad shit. And those dudes are so into the, like, everything that they put out, they're like genuinely into. Now the label sold, right? Matt Jackson sold the label some years ago, and the way it's explained to me is that the major label that owns them just leaves them alone and lets them just do fucking tight shit, and it's just so cool to work with them, and Drew over at Relapse, when we were working on the reissues, he is such a vinyl nerd, in like his color combos, the amount of detail this guy puts into it. I was just like, dude, just stop sending me these. This is yours now. Like, you do it. It's like, because I thought I had to do it, and and I thought I was creative, and I was like, fuck, dude, Drew's creative. So like, so we just turned them loose with the vinyl ways, and they're fucking nuts, and they're all, I mean, there's so much thought he put into it and stuff. So like, yeah, so I mean, how can you not want to work with people who want to work with you and want to do a good job? You know what I mean? And we've talked, I not with Coalesce, but I've worked with major labels, or not major labels, but like bigger metal labels that do major label level stuff. And like, it's very corporate, you know what I mean? And in my day job. And, I was the only person to take a chance on Behemoth when he came over with the merchandise. I was working with Nurgle before he could speak English, and it was so hard to work with him, but he's so amazing at it now. But like, Relapse is different. You know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like working with second nature. You know what I mean? It's like you're like working with your buddies, and that's like super rare, dude,
So with getting on Relapse, it seemed like you buy a van with the advance, you're on tour. What was the extent of that tour? Like, what did you have lined up? Was it a lot of dates? Was it like a, weekend run? What was the extent of that tour?
Yeah, it was a full US tour, and we made it through the East Coast, and then when we headed to the West Coast, it just blew up. And all like we had here's the story of Coalesce financially. Make a shit ton of money on the East Coast and lose it all on the West Coast. That's how it's always been. And so that it's, and at that time in our lives, our professional careers weren't developed. So we were like struggling to survive, you know what I mean? And I think that kind of came at a time when Jess was ready to go to college. He was ready to get married. He was ready to work on his doctorate and his, and I was not. I was ready to be in a rock and roll band and do this as long as I could. And so that was just like the perfect storm, and we're in the hotel room. There's like $300, to get home, and that's how it worked. Called parents, bail us out, left the van there. Never saw the van again,
So you leave the van. Well, yeah, I always wondered, I'm like, man, this is a time when, yeah, you're probably using, like atlases and like all these things to like get around and do, like, you break down in the middle of nowhere, I'm assuming. Like,
Burley, Idaho. Burley, Idaho. Anytime anything in the news says Burley, Idaho, someone in the fucking band texts it to everybody. Whether it's a murder or a skate park or any, if it says Burley, Idaho, we inevitably all get it, and it's just a smiley face. So
it's like that Burley Triangle, man. It just nothing good can happen in this fucking area.
So it's just one of those things, and so and that was it, and that was I mean, obviously everyone was frustrated, fucking hungry. We weren't eating, we weren't sleeping, it was just awful. So everybody had words, everybody was upset, feelings hurt, et cetera, and and that's when and that was after we took these bands from Relapse. And so I think it was like 6 months later, Matt calls, he goes, "Where's this fucking record? I give you money." I was like, "Dude, we're fucking broke up, dude." Like, tell you. But I wanted to do a record. And so I communicated with the guys the best I could, and they finally were like, "Fuck it, let's do it." So so definitely I think the stories of us like going in and puffing at each other and never talking to each other probably blown a little bit out of proportion because we had to fucking write the record together. But your interview or your podcast did remind me that James DeWeese put that thing at the end because fucking dicks. I totally blocked that out of my brain until I saw that, and I was cracking up because that's exactly what happened.
Way to go, Dill! You did it.
Yeah.
Well, I never listened to that to the end. Again. So that was so funny. But I would say the amount of effort in the songs from the musicianship was on par for their Coalesce releases. Those, I mean, just didn't phone anything in, obviously, but I think that I think that I would definitely do a lot. I think lyrics would probably be a lot different had I had collaborated with the band members. But that's the only thing I see really happening different. But like, I think the narrative largely is that's a phoned in record, and that's not accurate.
Yeah, no way.
But it definitely was tense, and we were recording in the Get Up Kids like merch closet in like downtown Kansas City or something, and I was there for all the writing sessions and stuff, and we got along. But we weren't having fun like we have now. I mean, like when we get together now, I mean, it's like our sides hurt so bad from laughing at dumb shit, and and like adding text, to the mix now is so fun because it's just we had to call people. Hey, you know what I mean? It's like,
right. Yeah.
Now it's just like, Ford Fairlane's on. We got Ford Fairlane's on. Let's see. It's quick. So like you can just, it's more fun for sure.
After y'all broke up, and especially when I like read all your interviews and stuff, you said that you were the person that you were trying to kind of push all the rest of the bandmates to like do more or like really get your shit together. And you said that after Coalesce broke up, you still wanted to play music and be in a band. Why didn't anything ever like surface for you? Like why? I think I read that you were in another band, but there weren't any like EPs or albums or anything like that.
Yeah. So here's how I understand it to be. Coalesce is it's just natural. Like we just gravitate and we just do it when we want to do it. Right. It's like a super easy relationship, even though it wasn't in the early days. Doing a band back then for me as the singer, someone who doesn't know shit about writing music, it's like I never found like the right kind of partner. So really it's like, Coalesce is kind of like has always been like the three of us, right? You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? But I feel like when, we all rely on each other and we all look to each other to get those things done. I think with other bands back then, it's like I would have to try to you know, uh, find the right guitar partner, right? And then the elusive drummer that doesn't exist. Even Coalesce has a problem with drummers. So like, um, so and it's just, and there was one band called I think we called it Anasazi, and we wrote like three songs. I don't even know if those songs exist. I did a project with Ed Rose and some other people. We recorded one song. And you know what? I think it was just so difficult, and I'm just not, I'm just not, even though people tell me I don't come off this way, but I'm definitely introverted. So like, I don't want to be the front guy. I'm not out there. Here's Sean's new, I'm not out there. I'm not good at that, So it wasn't until so you fast forward now. So the other project that I'm doing that's coming out, it's titled Heirs, and HEIRS. And so how that worked is a bunch of my friends started dying, right? And one of my buddies is a producer, Josh Barber. He does like The Devil Wears Prada. He did Norma Jean, the Jean record with the feathers on it. He does Seven Dust stuff. I mean, he's all over the place. He worked for Tech Nine. He worked at Strange Records. He was an in-house guy. And so I met him from just doing like guest spots, because I did guest spot for Every Time I Die. But that was one I did, and then I did a spot for Norman, and I would go to Josh and stuff. And so the exact same fucking thing happened. He was like, "Hey, we should do something together," and I had no interest in doing anything ever again. And so, because those spots were very hard for me to do vocally, because when you don't do it for 10 years, it's 12 years, it's not easy to get that sound. And so, and that was one of the reasons I didn't like doing why I wanted to take a break from Coalesce back in 2010, is it just hurt, and so, and a lot of that was not having the right equipment, but the same thing was happening. Couldn't get it off the ground. And he would call and he would talk about it. And then it wasn't until my buddy Corey Lawrence died, because my father had just died, and fucking Janet, I mean, fucking everybody's dying. And so he called, and I said, "Look," I said, "we're doing this or we're not, but don't fucking talk to me about it anymore. Like, I don't even want to fucking hear about it. You come to me with music, and we'll do it." And the next week he flew out to Spokane, and he isolated himself for like a week, and then he just started writing, and then he started sending me demos, and I was just like, this is exactly what I've been wanting to do. So
Nice.
So yeah, it's very different from Coalesce, obviously, and there's singing and 10-minute long songs. I mean, it's more of like kind of what, the type of stuff that I listen to, the post metal stuff I listen to, but like that is working because I have a partner that is feeling the things that I can't do. You know what I mean? As a singer, I can only do so much, right? You guys have seen singers that hire bands. Are they great? Do they look like somebody a band, right? You know what I mean? So it's like, that's really what's at that's what a singer like me has at their disposal. And so it's not good. So I have to have the right partner, and I didn't have the right partners, and so Coalesce, I have the right partners. Heirs, I have the right partner. It's, and it's great.
You kind of mentioned like some of the longer songs on this upcoming project. Is there anything that you've been like dying to experiment, maybe aside from like the longer tracks, or like maybe even vocally, like was there stuff that you were dying to try to do that maybe didn't necessarily fit with Coalesce, but perhaps fits for Heirs?
I mean, I've always wanted to sing.
Yeah.
I got to do that a little bit on Ox, where it made sense. But Coalesce is established as Coalesce. I mean, there's ways to experiment and expand and grow that, you know what I mean? But Coalesce is Coalesce, dude. If I put out, I put something out like Seven Dust that's not Coalesce, you know what I mean? So it's like, and those writing like that doesn't come naturally either. It's like when the three of us are together, we, Coalesce is a drum and bass band. even though Jess is so incredibly important to the band, it's like he'll tell you the same thing. You know, it's like Coalesce is about drum and bass, the end. And he'll tell you that him and me are just icing on top of it. And so that's how we like to write on that. But you know, I definitely don't like I said, I don't like nostalgia outside of Transformers, but I don't I like as far as like myself personally, I'm not into nostalgia. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't want to do the same thing twice. I largely like to do things and move on, you know, and do new things. And so, um, I think Josh kind of, he had his idea of what he always wanted to write because, he's kind of pigeonholed as part of the, pop punk because he's done a lot of pop punk, producing and stuff, but he's in the same kind of post metal stuff that I'm in. So he's just like, I just want to be myself too. So we really largely wrote this record with the intention to no one to ever hear it, honestly. Like we had no intention of doing it. It really was one of those things to where, not to get super, like dark or anything, but like, I mean, a couple of years ago, I mean, just deep depression and, and then just watching everybody die around me, I was just like, I need to be creative because I don't really want to be here anymore. And so it wasn't until we started working on that album that I really learned that was like just being creative in general is what was missing from my life. As much as I tried to tell myself that being creative in fucking Excel is enough, and saving people money or making people money or whatever, it it really it really became clear that I had spent so much of my life figuring out how to sell something for myself or somebody else that I didn't really remember how important it was to just make something for myself. And so we really doubled down on that. And, we flew to Giske, Norway, to record it at Ocean Sound Studios. We spent way more fucking money than we should have. And really it always starts like this. Josh calls me and he goes, just hear me out. Just hear me out. And so that's how that one started is he says, hey, we'll probably never do this again. We'll probably never get the chance to record songs that we're in love with again. I've always wanted to record over here, and so we did. So we flew 7 guys out to Norway and we recorded at Ocean Sound, which is I think most famous for Cult of Luna recording at.
Okay.
And and it was just, I just sold my business. It literally my last day at Merch Table was October 31st, and then we were recording November 8th. Like that's how quick. So it was, and I definitely learned that I'm a rubber band and I get so far, I snap and I need to come back and then I'll want to do it again. But like we went out there and it was just such a transformative experience, and I think that's the action that I was talking about begets action coalesce, and is, because I was able to share that with Jess. I was like, dude, look, we're fucking almost 50 and I had more fun here than I've ever had in my life, and he's just like, holy shit, you mean it's not too late, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know if that was part of his decision of wanting to do it again, but he is having the time of his life. So, and I think that that only comes from being creative.
Yeah.
Honestly, and that was when we're allowed to do that.
What's the difference in working with like someone like from a production standpoint like Josh versus like Ed Rose that you've worked with like forever?
Well, look, Ed Rose is amazing, and
Yeah.
Nellis is always trying. Ed's retired.
Okay.
Yeah, he's totally retired. He's got a bad back that he had surgery on. He's called the Simmons guy on Instagram. He basically he fixes Simmons electronics. And so that's what he's doing. And so we have dinner with Ed every year, like, and we love Ed. But I think the difference is we recorded everything on tape, and like, I had to fucking know my shit and go in and go. I mean, dude, Oh and 2 was that, you know, and a lot of Give Them Rope songs, that was one fucking take. I went in there and I belted that shit out and it was done, you know, and we always recorded it live in a room with, you know, as a band. That's how those songs were always recorded. So so when we did Heirs, what I totally prefer the way with Heirs better because I can be super fucking picky, and if I hear like something that no one else hears, I hear a little tone in my voice I don't like, I hear a little fucking Chewbacca sound that I'm like, I don't like that. I can go back in and I can fix it. Also, there something that I never had the opportunity to do is to listen to a song and listen to how the lyrics and how the syllables flow. And if I don't like it, you know what I mean? I mean, I would always call Josh, who's like, don't hate me, but we're redoing this whole song. Like
Yeah.
the entire fucking thing is being redone. And also, you know, because Josh is a professional engineer, our demos sound like most people's finished records. And that's the first thing most people comment on is like, dude, what the fuck is going on with this production? These are roughs, you know, and Josh is just really good at what he does. But we did the same thing. We recorded it as a live unit and then we layered on top of it.
That's so cool.
You know, and you know, and most Coalesce vocals are it's a little reverb and it's down the middle. That's it. And with Heirs, we were able to do like doubles, you know. I remember the day Josh called me, he's like, well, we need to do your doubles. I was like, what the fuck is a double? I'm done.
I just did this.
We need to do doubles, you know, we need to do like, because it'll make it feel fuller because of what we're doing. And like, so I learned a lot on this record, you know, and so, you know, and I've already recorded a video for it, which is like, what the fuck is that about? You know, so that was totally new and extremely difficult and totally sick of the song by the end of the day and all this stuff, you know. And so like I don't think all of the things that we do in Heirs translate to Coalesce, but like I tell you what, I want out of the fucking country if we do a new record, and I want somebody who's just a good hang and can do a good job and doesn't mind getting up at 2 a.m. in his underwear and being like, fuck it, let's go. Let's do it. You know, and that's like it's like that is to me, that's where like the brotherhood and the camaraderie really came through, you know. And you know, and the guy, you know, and I had an issue over there. I was recently diagnosed as being a celiac, which is the most fucking annoying disease ever. It's the gluten-free one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh
I'm
no.
always hungry. I'm always mad. I so annoyed by it. My food is never good. But I had gotten a hold of something, and when I get gluten, it makes me, it's like I have the flu for 3 days and like just vomiting and can't move and all that. And so that actually happened to me while I was over there. And so even with that, it was awesome. You know what I mean? It's like, even those were the 3 worst days of my life, you know, in a cot vomiting off the side in a bucket. It's like the experience was like that negative was like so drowned out with all the positive, you know. And so I would like to see that. I want Jess and Nate and Jeff to experience that, because I think that when you sequester yourself and allow yourself to work on that record, that is the only time anything of value is really going to happen. Like I feel like we've always fudged it, but this shit where I would fucking hang wallpaper for 8 hours and then go do some vocal tracks, dude, I promise you, it would have been a much more fulfilling experience if I just stayed there and told the rest of the world to fuck off. I'm just working on this record. And that's what we were allowed to do over there. And I would say anything, if we get the opportunity to do that in the future for Coalesce, that is absolutely how I'm going to lobby for that really hard.
Did you have to do like day job shit for Ox and Ox EP, like the much later stuff too?
Yeah, totally. Always, all the time. So dude, I've been poor my whole fucking life. So like I was always struggling to, you know, I've always been an entrepreneur, you know, and that just comes with it, right? You know, and so it's not until recently that I haven't had to struggle. So that's just how it was. You know what I mean? It's like through high school. I went to high school and then I left high school at noon and then I worked a job and then I worked another fucking job. I've always had two jobs. That's just who I am. You know, I can't sit still. So, uh, that it never dawned on me that would have might have had an effect on the record. Maybe it was a positive effect. I don't know. But I would say experiencing the other side of that coin, holy shit, I don't ever want to go back to doing that again.
Do you feel like maybe you came into your own as a lyricist with Ox? Was it because you had more time? Or was it because maybe it's a maturity thing? Like, where do you feel like maybe you found your stride as like a person who, handles that part of the job?
Yeah, so it's real weird because I kind of look at it as different seasons.
Mm.
And I feel like the beginning season of Coalesce was just, I could write about whatever I wanted. You know what I mean? It was awesome. It was really, and then when the whole like death threats and the straight edge and all of that stuff kind of came in, it's like I felt very reactionary, and you can kind of tell through 012 or Give Them Rope through 012, it's very reactionary. There was I've always pressed those dudes really hard. I was always kind of slave driving them to, we got to do this. Let's talk business. Let's do this record. I want to go out. I just want to do shit, And so it wasn't until because there was a 5-6 year break between 0 and 2 and us getting back together for the Salt and Passage. Yeah. And so during that 5 years, I think was transformative for me because I at that point I said, you know what, Sean, get the fuck out of your own way. Just let these dudes be them. And then you just add to it. And so that made a huge difference in our band and our relationship when I just it's just like, shut up, just like let them do what they want to do and then add to it instead of being like, we need to do this, we need this, or is our schedule, you know what I mean? And so that's just who I was. And probably a lot of that is I was allowed to do that with my business, and I saw success with my business doing that. So I wasn't wrong, but I was definitely in the wrong. Like that Coalesce was not the place to do that. So I think that's really where things got good, because if you look at our stretch from Salt and Passage to Ox, Junior's our longest running drummer. You know what I mean? And that was the longest stretch we ever had. And we had a great fucking time, And it wasn't until 2010 that we were like, all right, cool. Junior said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do some other stuff. And we were just like, well, I guess we don't have a drummer. And then we just never got a new drummer, right? And so we just, we didn't break up. We definitely deliberately never play a last show because we tried to put an end on it at one point, and we're like, well, this is the end. We're never going to do this again. And we played a last show, right? And it, just like Hot Water Music played their last show.
Yeah.
Slayer played their last show.
Right,
it's fucking dumb. And so like we were just like, we just made an agreement. And they're like, if no one will ever know our last show but us, right? Because it's just, because it's just stupid. Why are we announcing it? So it just reeks of cash grab, and also you never know what's going to happen, and whatever, and who cares, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, who cares if it's your last show? So I think that as far as lyrically, I'm most proud of Ox for sure. I don't really know the answer to this question, but there are a lot of really fucking conservative ideas in our early music, and I am not a conservative person, politically, fiscally maybe because I'm fucking cheapskate, but I don't like looking at those lyrics. I don't like hearing those lyrics. But to me, I have to chalk it up as part of being, I'm fucking 19. You know what
Right.
I mean? I'm not that same dude anymore, So, but Ox to me, really, Salt and Passage to Ox is like that still represents who I am, Whereas I think the other stuff, I probably wouldn't write a lot of stuff, but or I wouldn't approach it the way I did, but uh I think that they gave me such like full, control to just do whatever I want, that I was able to put the kind of emotion that I wanted to into it, and I didn't have to fight for anything on that record, it just everything is kind of put together, so but but moving forward into Airs, like, I was like, hey, you know what? I want the words to rhyme on these parts. I want, all of these things that I've never messed with before, and so and I'm sure some of that will come back into Coalesce if we write new music, some of that will come back, but like but I think at this point we know what Coalesce is and we know what we want Coalesce to feel like live, you know what I mean? And that, to me, that's the part about Converge that I'm so impressed with later in life, is that when you hear Jake's vocal approach, like the barking, like right, you know what I mean? When I would hear those, I would always think, hey, that's a really interesting way to do it. But then I saw him fucking live, and I'm here trying to fucking hold out syllables and shit and dying, and he's like fucking killing it. It's like, oh, he wrote this probably because he wanted this to feel like this live too. You know what I mean? And I super appreciate that now later in life, because I was like, oh fuck, I didn't even cross my mind. You know what I mean? I'm hearing the riff and I'm like, this vocal has to move like this, and I'm like tearing out, and I'm gonna, you guys ever counted out the beginning of The Plot Against My Love? Do you have any idea how fucking hard that is to pull off live, right? So it's like, that it doesn't work. So like, so I think that it would be interesting to see what we write now, because we know who we are, right? So like, I don't think we always knew who were until Ox. We're like, okay, cool, we love Americana, we love this stuff, we're gonna put it out there, and then what's next? So
the spaghetti western part of that like whole record was, so when they, reading some interviews with Jess, was like, oh, that, of course, that makes so much sense. Has any other like maybe medium, or like, whether it be literature, like film, has that ever kind of peeped its way into the way you approach a song, or like maybe influence a certain aspect of, creative outlets?
I mean, maybe. To me, the best song that I write, like for me, is when I get that same feeling when I'm writing a eulogy. Like when I wrote the eulogy for my pops, it's like that's how I have to write. And so really how my writing process works is that I once I'm in the zone of thinking about a song, the parts come to me at sporadic times of the day. Like I don't, like, for instance, the most recent thing that I wrote, half of it I was in my car, I had to pull over and type it in my notes, and so I had this huge lyric bank, and you know what I mean, it's just had all these parts, and then I would thread the needle, and so like that's how my writing process goes. But I can't thread the needle and put that together unless I'm left alone and I'm in the mood. If I have to write, I do shit work. If I'm just like, and it'll happen middle of fucking movie. Sorry, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry, babe. I gotta go do it. To me, to me, like the perfect song that I've ever been lucky enough to write was the song "A Safe Place," and that happened in the middle of the night. I woke up and I wrote it from beginning to end, and not a single word was changed. And like it was exactly what I wanted. And like that was one of those super rare events that I kind of like, um, try to get back to, but it's impossible to, because it's just the universe gave it to me, right? So, but like the Purveyor, Novelty and Nonsense, that was another close second. Through Sparrows I Rest was a fucking close second. And I've just had some of those songs on this new this new project I'm doing. There's a song called Mama at the end. It's an acoustical song. Fuck, it just wrote itself. And so like it's, yeah, it's, I think it's all of those things.
I am curious. You mentioned earlier about selling your business. Are you still running blue collar printing at the moment, or also the skeleton key manufacturing? I'm wondering I was curious what your affiliation with it. Like, how'd you meet the Vert Vampire and like get it all done into that world?
So I'm currently unemployed. I sold my business for shit fucking ton of money, and I'm just fucking off
Awesome.
pretending. So I don't know what I'm doing, honestly. Writing records and shit. I don't know.
Perfect.
Am I 20 or am I 50? I don't know.
Yeah.
So what happened is we had three partners, and one partner did not make it through the pandemic in a good way. He just lost his fucking mind. And we went from being able to pay our employees when the government was basically subsidizing punk rock for a year, which was crazy to think about. And then everybody's generosity wore off, after that. And then it just went from fucking, oh, cool, we got some breathing room, to where we didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Just scared, dude. It's like, what the fuck is going on, And, my partners didn't really want to be, or we ended up getting rid of the one partner, but my other partner, he didn't want to be there, And so, and that's something I've learned in the last 6 months since I've been doing this other stuff, is like, I'm an awesome fucking partner, but I am a terrible sole proprietor. Like I need a partner to hype me up. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't, and maybe that's part of why I never could get a band off the ground myself, right? Because I'm not the guy, I'm not the hype man. You know what I mean? I'm definitely the person that's thinks about it real carefully, and
operations.
Yeah, and operations and stuff. So like, but anyways, we looked at exiting the business, and then I got the fucking Boy Genius account at the last minute.
Oh wow.
And I was responsible for that entire merch launch for Boy. Yeah, dude. Stories insane.
Yeah.
And so we negotiated the sale of our business, and then I got that account. And so so we worked through the whole thing, and the company, this company in Kansas City called Scene Merchandise, they do tons of stuff. It's a real big company, real big printing facility. And the owner of that company, it's owned by brothers RL and Micah. And so what they did with their company is really pretty amazing. And so they wanted our software. So Merch Table, actually, even though it's a merch company, it's really a software company. We built our own e-com software when everybody else was jumping in bed with Shopify, and now Shopify is fucking everybody over by upping their rates and all this stuff. And so we were able to have hundreds of bands on our roster without paying, $500 a pop, because Shopify is $30, right? It's $500 if you want to do the basic functions to actually sell something and get it there. So, and it's, the irony is not lost on me that Skeleton Key is done on Shopify, because I have to for marketing reasons. But like, anyways, this is boring, but like they acquired the company, and then we were just consultants, to help them through the transition and everything. And they, SCP, which was this huge company in Chicago, they right towards, like, just recently, they completely went bankrupt, fucked everybody over. Mitski, all these kind of big like groups, and so they're now at Merch Table, and and they're handling them and stuff. So I'm just kind of fucking off, honestly. So I have, RL has the option to hire me to be his CTO if he wants. I literally have no fucking plans. It's so frightening. So I have no clue. So I'm just having fun with what I'm doing. I'm doing projects for my wife. I'm doing Skeleton Key. This was super bizarre how this happened. I mentioned before, but my buddy Corey Lawrence, he passed skateboarding on a vert ramp. He didn't have a certified helmet. He's wearing one of the old Protec helmets that we all had as kids. Those are not designed to keep your brain intact, right? and he had gone for an ollie and he slipped and he fell back and his brain in some way had detached from his column. So he took like a week to pass, and it was just traumatic and everything. And so my buddy Dan Askew, who does Second Nature Records, he also owns the biggest skate shop in Kansas City called Escape, and that's what he does for his his big boy job, right? And so it's just been painful for to lose Corey. And so we, me and Dan were just like, we have to do something. What are we going to do? Of course, we come up with this amazing fucking idea to build a vert ramp, the very thing that killed him. And so, but to us, we were like, hey, look, if Corey knew how he died, he would think it was fucking hilarious and amazing. Like, skate or die, he would fucking love that. So we were like, you know what? Corey would not be like, don't skate vert. He would be like, fucking do it and die doing it. Do something you love doing. And so that's really was the idea of why we built it, even though it's so counterintuitive why we would do this. And dude, we raised $65,000 for this ramp, the most incredible amount of money for this ramp. And actually, Coalesce fans helped. We brought back the Skull Skate shirt. It's a fundraiser, and we banned that shirt because the owner of Skull Skates threatened to beat me up if we didn't stop doing it back in the day. And Nate's just like, well, I think you can take him now, Sean. So I was like, all right, well, let's see what happens. So I was like, look, if he's a fucking asshole about this, whatever. So
Right.
And we put every penny into that, and they raised Coalesce fans raised like 20 grand. It was incredible, dude. So like we put that to good use. And then I just didn't really know what that ramp would do. I mean, I knew what it did in my backyard. It was, I always say it's like, hey, like the Masters of the Universe need the Castle Grayskull, right? And like that's what ramps are. It's like it just attacks all of the fucking, people. It's like a magnet. But skateboarding is very different today. So I didn't know what would happen. And so fucking got this thing built, and then I proceeded to never think about it or skate it or do anything ever again because I had a motorcycle accident several years ago. It took forever to heal. All of this, I'm not going to be a vert skater. Sure enough, I'm out there every fucking Tuesday and Thursday trying to vert again with these people I used to skate with as kids and like these new pro guys. So when we launched the ramp, when we had the release, Dan was just like, dude, my favorite skater, if we can fly him out and he'll like demo it and stuff. And so we just started coming out and we just hit it off and stuff. And so he's kind of at a crossroads in his professional career, and he has the skeleton key thing that he's been doing for 10 years now. But just kind of punk rock cut and sew type stuff. And so I just took some of my money from the sale and then I just fucking dumped it into Skeleton Key, and I was like, let's just go in as partners and let's just do it. So that's what I do for several hours a day, it's just helping him see his vision. Skeleton Key is his. I'm operations, and I tell Darren this all the time. I was like, dude, no accountant has ever made a fucking cool skateboard company in the history of the world. So like, you are the pro, you are the guy, and it's fun too because like to me skateboarding is so important, and we're working on a Thrasher ad right now. And so
sick.
like me, I'm just like, I know I'm paying for this ad, but like, dude, I'm fucking working on a Thrasher ad, So I'm very excited and it's just fun and stuff, but it's real slow and it's not like, it's not like a, paying job or anything like that. So, but it is definitely super, like incredibly fun. Like I love it so much. I converted my entire garage. I pulled all my cars. I'm selling everything out of it. I have movable racks. I go out there, put music on, and I pack fucking skateboard orders. They're all coming for me. And it's just fun. You know what I mean? So, and it's going good so far. And, and we're just going to really kind of do it until the wheels fall off. We'll see what happens.
That's so sick. Swindle, you think we get back into it? We get you back on the board?
I have a skateboard. I don't think I have the pain tolerance to like fall off a skateboard and then get back up and want to keep doing it. Every time I fall, I'm like, that's the last time. That's the last time I'm falling.
I tried to get Swindle to drop in one time. I like even held his hand, and he had a show like later that day, and I totally ruined it. I was like, no, man, you got this. It just
broke my wrist.
Oh, dude, that's the worst. You know what? And like dude, it's hard to get back up. And you know what? When I slam, it's like that leg stays numb for like a good.
Oh.
It's like I can't even fucking feel it. I don't remember this as a kid. I used to fall all the time, you know what I mean? So it's like I'll have a hand, if I come down wrong or whatever, and just relearning how to fall. Like, that's to me on vert, that's like the biggest thing, because that's how I'm gonna end up killing myself, is like because I go for a front side and I don't know how to go to my knees, you know what I mean? And so I started seeing a personal trainer about 2 years ago, 1 year in preparation for the ramp. It's actually the keyboardist from the Get Up Kids, Dustin Kinsey. So it's a very small world here in Lawrence. And so so he put together, and I see him 2-3 times a week, and my entire routine is to do movements and stuff to get strength training so that I can be on a skateboard, you know what I mean? And so I don't know why I'm doing that. So it's like, but like, I mean, dude, I always come home in the greatest mood, you know what I mean? And doctors say 15 minutes of exercise does the equivalent of, an antidepressant. So I figure if I'm doing like 2 hours, I've got like 8 doses of antidepressant. So it's like I'm doing the math there. I'm doing, like, really good. And I do, you know what I mean? And like I feel like I know I'm feeling good when I want to fight. You know what I mean? And I've been feeling like I want to fight, like when I get back from there. Not physically fight other people, but like just like I don't want to shrink into myself. I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'll do this. Let's go. Let's tackle this, So like, and I think skateboarding largely has done that for me, And it's so cool to circle back to that so late in life,
Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but you kind of mentioned your son earlier, kind of getting into like, straight edge and everything. Do you have any thoughts on what the scene is? I'm sure you've seen all sorts of trends and changes with hardcore music and punk over the years. Are there things you've been listening to, things that are new or old, whatever? I just want to hear maybe what your listening habits and thoughts on like hardcore and punk in general have been.
So my kids have really introduced me to a lot of shit. I'll tell you what fucking rules is Chat Pile.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Cool. You know who else fucking rules is Meth.
Yes, right? Yeah, Chicago area.
Dude, these kids are fucking killing it. Oh my God, they're so cool. So interesting. And that largely has been what's got Jess stoked too. He heard Chat Pile and he's just like, fuck, dude, he goes, how could I possibly write anything this good? Like, this is so amazing, and it's just got his, and then he thinks about it and he processes it and then he puts his spin on, and so it's cool to see. It's cool to see bands maybe, I don't know, 5 schools removed from us, that were inspired by a band that were inspired by us, and then Jess is leapfrogging right back over, and then and chatting with those guys too. So like, so that's been interesting. So we're totally trying to figure out how to play with Chat Pile.
Wow, that would be so sick.
Cool. And then as far as like what's currently on rotation, here's Cherry Glazer. Like that girl's fucking dope, dude. I love her so much. But my son is like into like Spy, Drain, all the like really big stuff and hardcore and stuff. And they're great, but like largely it's just not like the type of music that I listen to.
Sure.
So like I don't totally know the nuances of them, but I'm always Elder, Tool, obviously super boring old guy music, right? And then and Quicksand always. Can you fucking believe that Steve from fucking Cave-In is in Quicksand?
That's why, yeah, dude, that guy rules. Talk about a fucking riff. Like, I love everything that guy does. He's awesome.
I was chatting with him and about something else, and I just always want to ask him, but I don't know how to not sound stupid on text. But I'm just like, did you ever fucking think that you would be playing with one of the greatest bands that I'm sure inspired your band? Like, what is that like? You know what I mean? That's got to be incredible. So, and same and to the same degree, Ben and Suicidal Tendencies. What the fuck, dude?
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. It's so cool, It's so yeah, it's amazing, dude. So I think that'll keep happening. I think that maybe at some point, like a Converge or whoever is going to get a younger kid, and there's just like, holy shit, I grew up loving this band, you know what I mean? And they'll be the same. It's weird to think of that too, because I think all the bands that we kind of came up with all largely have the same age people in it and stuff. But Ben is definitely not the same age as Suicidal Tendencies, you know what I mean? So that's like
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So that's really all I've been kind of doing. Nothing. No, yeah, I like, and honestly, you know how it is when you write a record. I'm sure you guys are in bands. It's like you're this record. You know what I mean? So I'll come out of this record, and then I'll be like, hey, what's out there? But like currently, I'm like got tunnel vision. Because we're in the final stages of of production and stuff.
Are you going to take your son to Furnace? Is he coming with you?
So I got 4 kids, right? And I have a daughter too, Hazel. And so Hazel, she works at Scene Merch, and she's got tattoos, the whole nine, right? She's 24, and then she also works at Record Bar, which is the one of the bigger clubs down Kansas City, working with booking and stuff like that. So she's totally dialed into the scene. So she's the one, she brings music to me. So that's how I discovered like King Woman and all this other kind of stuff,
hell yeah.
And that's like, because she has like most kids, they have pretty impeccable fucking taste, right? I mean, that's how Dog House Records used to sign. That's how he signed bands. He gave it to his 14-year-old niece, right? He says, do you like this? She's like, yeah, I love it. He's like, cool, we're signing the Get Up Kids. You know what I mean? He didn't know. So whether that story's true or not, I don't know, but it's a great fucking story, right? Because it's super true. It's super true with my kids, but my son is also into stuff like Tsunami, which I don't fucking understand. And he's more of into like, he's all about getting in the pit and fucking shit up, and he loves that shit, but my daughter is the one who, when she brings stuff to me, that's the stuff that I'm usually like, oh shit, this is amazing, and I add it to to my playlist. Yeah.
Well, with I know we got Heirs coming at some point. We got at least one Coalesce show on the books for the year. Is there anything else that you hope to accomplish in 2024? Like whether it be music or just life stuff? Like what do you hope to do this year or in the future?
Well, get a job.
Yeah, maybe. Gotta eat, man. I get it.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it there. But joking aside, I want to get the guys in Coalesce interested in going to Europe. So I want to get those guys. I want to get them set up to where they're gonna have I want 2025 to be a fucking fun ass year for everybody involved. And so we're largely kind of planning stuff like that. Furnace Fest is not a one-off by any means. I think anybody local should, if they're listening to this, should definitely read between any lines of any chat pile shows that they see coming up in the next, being announced here pretty soon. We love secret shows. And then I would say that no plan is a good plan for us, for sure.
Sounds like
it'll just happen naturally, and then we'll just do it, and that's kind of like what our announcement, that's why it said fuck it, we'll do it, because that's what was the sentiment. It's just like, that's the amount of thought put into, it's like the brand business of it. We're just like, fuck it, sounds fun, let's do it. So.
Well, I'm so happy
yeah.
to hear it. Keep an eye out for Heirs. Keep an eye out for all the fun stuff happening in the Coalesce world. Sean, I can't thank you enough for joining us and just chatting with us for a while.
Yeah, thanks. And to my friends listening to this, I hope you appreciate that we got through this interview without talking about People's Court. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Oh, damn it. I totally forgot about that.
That's for another time. It's a funny, dumb story. You'll love it.
Thanks again, man. For Sean, Swindle, Dylan, me, you've been listening to Riff Worship. We'll be back next week talking about something. See you later.